We've participated in another panel together, and I said that I think in a way this probably has greater potential for you as a blogger than maybe it does for me as someone who travels around with a television crew and a camera, a professional camera. And as an illustration of that, an example but if anyone remembers Doris Lessing's Nobel acceptance speech, getting out of the taxi, essentially being told she won a Nobel Prize and saying, "Oh Christ," that was me who told her she won the Nobel Prize. And I had a decision to make as the taxi pulled up, whether I get my mobile phone out of my pocket and shoot it. And I knew that would get to Reuters more quickly and would get around the world. But it would be, it would be not the quality that our clients would expect. And being a syndication service, I knew that there was tremendous value in that video, and I just kept it in my pocket because I didn't want to ruin the moment with me having a mobile phone in front of my camera. So I still think that there are, I think it's incredibly powerful in certain situations, but not for every situation.
And a parallel question to Matthew then, when would you use camera technology like this versus a big campaign budget and professional equipment in marketing and communications?
I think when the story or the conversation demands it, and I think, as we've heard a lot, that we should never get too caught up on this notion that one technology is hip and hence it has to be used. We've all heard in years past, if you've talked to clients, these blogs are great, we better get ourselves a blog, and then nothing to put on it. I think the same thing applies here, is that all we're dealing with here are tools that allow us to report, to communicate, to tell stories. You pick and choose for the medium that fits the right audience, just as you pick and choose and you create the right content that will help the conversation with the audience as well, or the conversers. So I think you judge that on a case-by-case basis, really.
Can you pluck any examples from your big casebook of best practice?
Of how this stuff is being used.
Video,
well, I'll tell you how it's
not necessarily mobile.
I tell you how video online at the moment is not being done well, and I think we have to go back to the world of journalism for that, because this is how it's really being used in the most part at the moment, is that if you go on to someone like the Wall Street Journal site, no offense to anyone in the Wall Street Journal, but they will produce 6-minute clips of very well thought out stories, but 6 minutes is something that people don't sit and watch. And I think what you need...
I'm not sure if I totally agree with that, though. I just watched an interview the FT did last week with Chad Hurley from YouTube, and I think it might have been a half an hour, but it was fascinating. I think there's certain people who can carry it, and if you're really interested in it, but it can be carved up in a number of ways.
Yeah, I personally don't watch that amount of time of video online. I think where it, and I understand if you really kind of engaged in, I use that word again, in a specific topic, and you may have been very interested in what Chad Hurley was going to be saying, that you stay with that. But as a rule, and as an experience, whether it be in marketing, whether it be in journalism, whether it be in PR, whatever, when people are online, they tend to flit around, and they don't tend to stay on one specific thing. And so I think you have to be telling stories quickly, effectively, and maybe using video as a complement, as I think Mark was saying before, to lots of other things you do.
There's a very funny parody online, actually, that Current TV has done on the financial sites like the Wall Street Journal and their efforts to get into video. You should probably Google that. But so as the broadband penetration has increased and has opened up this possibility of pushing out video content, some brands have found accidental success on YouTube. Others have decided to do a viral video. So I'm thinking of, for example, of the Cadbury's Gorilla, which was designed to become this phenomenal, widespread hit on YouTube. Was it as such? And what are the strengths and weaknesses of doing a campaign and professionally commissioning this stuff versus just serendipitously finding that it works?
comes down to, again, are you upfront, are you transparent in what you're doing, and are you creating something that isn't just kind of, I think Joanne was saying before, isn't just gimmicky, but actually maybe has some value over and above the gimmick. I actually don't know how successful that Cadbury's campaign was, but I mean, at the start of the day, we talked about the Ronaldinho video, which was both gimmicky, but I would argue added value, because people were actually saying, wow, that really, sort of is something that I can talk about, and, maybe won't make me go and buy a gold pair of Nike boots, but will pass around and is offering something positive and it was a little story. It was 2 minutes long, but there was a narrative within it, and sits there, 23 million viewers.
I'm thinking of another example of when YouTube video has been used in crisis communications, really. I think someone mentioned JetBlue earlier. The US airline was facing a PR shitstorm a couple of years ago when it had to cancel a lot of flights, and its chief executive did a piece to camera in the JetBlue offices, filmed it and put it up on YouTube as a way of saying, we screwed up there and we're sorry. And I think that's an example of the transparency that you're kind of talking about. So different individuals and people sort of rise to the top on these sites as the traffic will allow. But thinking of Quick then, if Mireia could give us some examples of the most viewed people on Quick, what are the kinds of content that work there? I'm thinking of one individual, an Irish gentleman who mounts his camera phone on his bicycle and recites Keats to Quick live as he pedals down the side of a canal.
Yes, I think that's an interesting way of using it, and also very personal, again, going to the fact that you're really showing who you are and what you do. We had another case of a pilgrim that did the Camino de Santiago in the north of Spain and was broadcasting every day during 30 days and giving his overview about what the route was like. It was about 8 hours a day, not all in one go, I hasten to add, but maybe sometimes an hour, and some people were addicted to that. In terms of more usable or more useful content for many people, Robert Scoble, for instance, in the US, will go around and attend conferences and film, for instance, Google, Camp One, or other events, and get questions from the audience and ask questions. And that seems to be, for technical people, very interesting. So those are the two ends of the scope. We have the World Economic Forum as well, doing interviews to their analysts on reports and saying what the results are like. Easy to implement, and the possibility of getting questions. So it's a huge scope, but I would say that Robert Scoble is one of the serious ones, and then we have other people like reciting poetry, which is very nice and very interesting, but for a completely different audience.
I mean, video hosting and bandwidth is quite expensive, so it's maybe fortunate for some of the people like in this room that they can outsource that to you. But it seems like a resource hog for you. How are you going to make this pay?
We're going to make this pay. Well, that's the business model question. I think that's something that has been questioned before as well for other developments. And there are different options. One of them is, of course, that the service is always going to be free because we feel that people should have access to that service. But certainly you will need to pay for the online, the internet access. And that's something to bear in mind, that the viewers or the quickers, as it were, people streaming are going to be paying for that somehow. So for us, the revenue will come either from maybe advertising or certainly from a payback or a kickback from the operators where we establish some agreement, or maybe from premium services. So again, it's depending on what we can sell to others that they are willing to pay for. At the moment, I think that we're all experimenting, even our users, as to how can we use this, how can we make this work for our companies. And I think that has been the question now. Well, are we blogging? Is it only text? Well, blogging has to include video, I think, and of course I would say that. But I think it does add some value. And if you can make that work for your brand, for your message, and make sure that you get some benefit out of that, then probably you won't mind paying for that bandwidth that you are using over the phone.